we're already here. Alright, today we're going to try and update some things to .NET 5. Clean architecture. I think we just updated to .NET 5 thanks to Shady. So, 2 days ago. Yep. And then the other thing we added to this was .NET CLI template support. So I want to get this published to Nuget also, although it's might not be the thing that happens today, but that is a new thing on this one. Let's duplicate this and let's go look at other projects. So I have a bunch. So the next one that we want to look at is guard clauses, I think. And so guard clauses currently, if we go find it on Nuget, it's on version 3.0.1, and I think it's just targeting net standard, if I remember right. Let's go take a look at it and make sure that it's good to go. I should also make sure that people can hear me, because that's sometimes a problem. So Twitch TV here, can you hear me? Test, test. Test, test. Perfect. Alright, so I'm going to pull up guard clauses locally. And let's take a look at this. Alright, so currently we're at Net Standard 2 and Net 4.0. Do we need to do anything with this one to make it work for Net 5 is the question. So I don't know that we do. I think any Net 5 project should be able to support this just fine. And to test that, let's create one real quick. Hey Kabazi, how are you doing? So I don't want to update things to Net 5 just to make them less accessible for people. Let's just do create a new project. What console app will do. Net 5 test app. So for things like guard clauses that should just work for any version of .NET, I don't know that I need to do anything else. So let's just open up Nuget packages and go find our guard clauses. Let's search for all the Ardalis things. Yeah. Guard clauses, install. Need to pump up my download numbers. Alright, dependencies, Net Framework 4 or Net Standard 2. In here now I should be able to say string input equals hi, guard dot against dot well, there we go, against, we'll say null. Where are you, red? Oh, right. There we go. Can't even use my own library. Okay, so that seems to build, and I'm sure that'll run. So I think I'm going to say guard clauses is probably fine as is without any need to change. So, yep, and that ran just fine. Okay, so we'll keep this test app around. While we've got this open, let's go look at the list of issues for guard clauses. Here, there's 4 issues. Let's see if there's anything here we can knock out real quick. Alright, so there was a request to guard against any set of things versus having multiple lines. I was still on the fence about this. I'm gonna at least throw a label out here to say this is a discussion or question. I guess we'll say it's a question. And say, does anyone feel strongly that this is a needed feature? If not, I'm going to close this. Alright. And let's see, that was from July. Nobody's asked for it since July, so we'll give them one more chance. Let's see, expression guard. Guard against an expression. Someone was just mentioning a couple days ago, Daniel Burt said this could lead to performance issues, and he linked to a different guard implementation, it looks like. So I haven't had a chance to look at this. So without an assertion here, it took this long, and with an assertion it took 92% of that time. Or is 92% as fast? Is that what he's saying? Other assertion. This is old. This is like from 2018. I think if there were an option to use expressions in this guard, you would only incur a performance hit if you used it. Hey, Fiseni. Yeah, you're pretty much on time. Any reason you want to limit this only for struct? That's you, Fiseni. Where did I say that I was limiting it to struct, though? Did I say where t is struct somewhere over here? I did. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It wouldn't need to be, would it? So I'm gonna say let's go ahead and implement this, and so I will say it's a good first issue, help wanted. Let's do it, and we'll try it out. So let's implement this and see if there are any issues. Alright, I'm not necessarily going to implement it right now because today I'm trying to get upgrades to 5, but we'll just do some triage here on these. Add parameter name. This one looks like it might be an easy one. This is already done, I think. So, yeah, this one's ready to be closed. Good. I'm kind of a slacker as an open source maintainer. Alright, add ability to provide reg expressions. Nice pass a regex to guard against. We're thinking further, I'm not sure how I would name these to help with readability, right? So you'd almost want to say it matches the thing. Be like guard against strings matching regex expression. Because it has to be a string, so that would be the only thing that would work. Hey, Eamon Keen. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Welcome to the stream. Let me know if you have any questions. So I think this would be how I would expect to name this. And it was, what, 10 days ago? So it's not too old yet. So I could see this being useful. And it's pretty common for any kind of validation framework to have that. So let's let somebody else tackle this if they want to. We'll leave that out there. And otherwise, I think we're good to go on guard clauses. I don't think we need to do anything else for .NET 5. So I'm going to move on from this one. And we'll close this. And we'll see. I'm just going and list in order of stars. So the next stars one is API endpoints. And this one we might have to do something with, so let's take a look at this. API Endpoints is also out on Nuget, and it is dependent on who knows what. Hey David C, how's it going? Let's go open it up. So I've got guard clauses already here. Let's go open project. API endpoints. Alright, I think I've done this already with .NET 5 projects before. So let's just see. Net Standard 2, that should work fine in .NET 5, right? I can't think if there's any language features or anything I would really want this thing to have. If I go create, where's my test harness? .NET 5 test app here. There's no reason why this thing couldn't also have a Nuget dependency on the API endpoints one, right? So I'll say manage Nuget projects, Ardalis dot API endpoints, install that, and accept the license. Now we have that, which means I could create an endpoint here, even though public class some endpoint colon base endpoint. Can't spell. This seems like it's going to work just fine. So I think we're going to be pretty much good to go on this one as well. So basically, as long as this compiles, we're in good shape. And it looks like it does. So, alright, so I think that was pretty much another no-op upgrade. Are there any features that this thing would use from .NET 5 though? Because right now, let me see, what version of MVC am I depending on? So my dependencies, no, my dependencies here. I should have a dependency on here, ASP.NET Core, MVC Core, and that is not the latest version of that at all. So if I pull that up to the latest version, that's probably going to force me to change something. So let's try that. And there's probably an easier way to do this than this, but we'll try pulling this up. 225 is the latest one? Really? Well, that's annoying, whoever you are. I guess I have to kick you out of here. Ban. Boom. I don't usually have problems with idiots in my chat, so sorry about that. Alright. So the question is, do we need to update this to anything? Because it hasn't been updated since 2019. Did they not make any changes to MVC, ASP.NET Core MVC in .NET 5? I thought they did. Or did they just put it in a different package? Let's try. Alright, that one's 2.2. HTTP features, HTTP features is up to 5. So what did they do here? I thought they revved everything to 5, but apparently not so much. Okay, well, I guess I don't need to change anything because it still works the way it did before. So we're going to say that one's good to go. Framework reference instead of package reference. Not for MVC though. right? I mean, this has always been a package reference. And yeah, I mean, you use it on .NET Core 3.1, and you still use this one, but I thought with 5 they were revving all these, and I guess I'm mistaken on that. I mean, at some point they'll update this thing, right? They must have fixed some bugs or something in ASP.NET Core. What's this thing say? Change your SDK, update your target framework, update your WebAssembly projects. Right. What about package references? Alright, so HTTP JSON, there's only these 4 that changed. So if I didn't do anything with any of these things, then I don't have to change anything. It looks like. So, okay, so I'm off the hook for API endpoints, is what we're saying. So that brings us to Smart Enum. And Smart Enum is another one that should just work fine as a .NET Standard project, I think. I don't know why that's... There we go. So this one actually has a couple downloads, and it's been sitting at version 2.0 forever, and it's got a bunch of issues, so I probably want to fix some of these. Let's take a look at it. So if we look at it on Nuget, it's 2.0 was just 2 months ago, and we should be able to take this and pull it into our test project, and I'm sure it's going to work just fine. That one, install. .NET Framework 4.5 or .NET Standard 2, and this should be just fine. So to use Smart Enum, we just go to the project site and copy one of these examples. And we'll throw that in right there. And it's all going to work. Alright, so maybe updating things to .NET 5 is way easier than I thought. I think applications have some work to do to update to .NET 5, but these Nuget packages, they seem to be just fine. Let's see if there's anything special that Microsoft talks about. Migrating Nuget packages to support .NET 5. Nuget package libraries. Choosing how, framework to 5, blah blah blah. If you have no plan to move, okay. Choice to update, migrate from .NET Framework to .NET 5. Okay, but I'm already on .NET Standard for anything that's on .NET Framework, like Smart Enum. So as long as I got .NET Standard support, I should be fine. Fork or multi-target. If your library's code happens to be compatible with the now deprecated .NET Standard 2, okay. .NET Standard was a predecessor. That's not exactly true. It was, I mean, yeah, it shipped before .NET Core, but it wasn't like they had anything else in common. Okay. I'm not really keen to get into multi-targeting. Yeah, I think for now, all my stuff is working. Did I do something dumb when I created this .NET 5 thing? Like not make it a .NET 5 app? Yeah, I did. It's a 3.1 app. That's why it's named a .NET 5 app, but it's not actually doing what I want it to do. Let's try making it .NET 5. That should have been the default since this is my new app. And then let's see if any of this stuff still works as easily as it was. It should still work though. Yeah, it still works fine. so no change. But now we actually are testing it. It's net 5.0, so that's better. But yeah, so API endpoints works fine, smart enum works fine, guard clauses work fine. In the now deprecated net standard 2.0, they may be deprecated, but they work fine. Alright, so let's see if Microsoft has anything to say on this. How to migrate? No. Migrate from .NET Framework? No. Updating a framework library? No. Package dependencies? Yeah, none of this is saying anything about what I'm trying to do. So I think we're alright. So let me just see what other repos I have, and then let's maybe just spend a few minutes looking at smart enum. And clean architecture too. It's got a few other issues. So let's look here. That's about it in terms of the ones with the most stars, because that's not a package, that's not a package. So, and if I sort like this, it's going to be awful. Is there a way to sort this by stars? There's not. No, that's not helpful. This is just in order from like the last time I touched any of these things, so that's not good. I guess I have to just go out to Nuget and search for Ardalis and come at it this way. So we looked at that, I don't really care about that or that. Specification, Viceni and I have been doing some work on that. I think it's going to be the same as the other ones in terms of not needing anything, but we should verify that. So let's look at specification next. So we'll go out to the project site. I should be able to pull this in also to my net5 helper. So let's try that first. So here's my net5 helper app. We'll manage its Nuget packages. We'll look for our Ardalis specification and install that. And it's net standard 2.0, so it should work just fine. And how do we know that? Well, we can say that we're going to have a public class some spec, Ardalis dot specification, and that needs what? Why are you red? Oh, right. Dot specification of T, where T is something. Could be a response. Be fine. It's not what it ought to be, but it'll build. Okay. What are we still working on merging there? Prasad Kumar sent a link. Let's see what that says. Migrate from here to there. Yeah, I've gone through this. This is the one I have open. Most of it's all about Blazor, right? So most of my Nuget packages aren't Blazor specific. So update target framework. I did that, but I'm not doing that for my net standard things because it's just going to make a break and not work with other things. I just want to make sure they can still be consumed by net5, and so far they are. So this one's Blazor, this one's Blazor, this one's Blazor, this one's Razor class libraries. We saw these are the only package references that seem to change, and that's about it. Use database error page, that was always a poorly named thing. Now it's a add database developer page exception filter, which is a little bit longer, but I guess it's a little bit more accurate. Now it requires two things, here and here, which is unfortunate, but okay. Alright, it might be good to go. In-memory features not merged, and we have no good tests. Well, that's always good. Alright, the Ardalis specification EF one is the one that I was wondering if that might have more dependencies, because EF did make changes And if we depend on a newer version of EF for this package, it might cause it to not work with older versions. But I don't think that we use any of the newer features, so I don't know that we need to require that version. Right? So if we look at this one and we look at the CS Proj, we are using EF Core 316. But if we go look at EF Core, I'm pretty sure this package did rev with Net5, because EF 5, or whatever the heck they're calling it now, EF Core 5, yeah, has a 5.0 version with 500,000 downloads. So the question is, do we need to update to that or not? And the only thing it really added that was interesting was support for many-to-many relationships. All right, let's look at this specification for sending ascending. Added EF to support EF6. Okay, that's a different one. 472 with EF6, depending EF6 and EF core is a PR. Alright. 20 days ago, somebody promised that I would comment and review this. Well, I guess this is the time. Should the TFM be 472? What if it were net standard? EF6 works fine with that. I tried net standard. 6.4 depends on 2.1. Net framework is not compatible with 2.1. Therefore, we're hosed. Okay, and we could create a new package for EF6. That would make sense. Right, agreed. That probably could have been Core 3 since they're versioning them. But I don't want to have a package explosion either. I think if people want EF Core, they can just use the version that we shipped that supported EF Core, and then our new one can still support EF Core but be a new version. And maybe we rev our version to match EF's version, but that's a little wonky because right now it matches our version. Alright, so if we come back out here and we look at Ardalis.specification, we have this EF Core version 4.1, which matches our specification version 4.1. I don't want to put version numbers in here if I can avoid it. But I suppose if EF Core doesn't ship that often, it wouldn't be that awful to do. And there is some precedent for it. A lot of IOC containers back in the day had like structuremap.mvc3, structuremap.mvc5. So, you know, based on what they're targeting, they'd put that right in there. And so that can work. My reluctance is mostly about, right now I do all the work of Nuget information is in the project file. And I don't want to have multiple different project files or if statements in my project file, or how do I manage that then? Let me pull that up. So this is API endpoints. Let's go open up specification. Alright, so the specification, there's some tests, there's EF, and some tests. So right now, mouse wheel is not scrolling. Right now this looks like this. It's net standard 2, so it should work from .NET 5. The question is, if I want 3.16 and someone else has EF Core 5, will it still work? I think it should, but we can test that out. So let's go over here. Let's go to Nuget packages. Hey, John Calloway. And we are going to look for Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. There. We'll add this and install it. Is that working? There it goes. I had to think about it. Alright, so now we have EF Core installed. Now let's also go back to Ardalis and we want to do ardalis.specification.efcore. And now what's going to happen here, it should still work, I think. Because it wants efcore greater than or equal to 316. And that should be fine. Okay. So then if I say in here, public appdb context, colon db context, like that. Now I've got, I need to tell it it's a class. Now I can pull in my namespace, and that should work fine. And then I can say, what do I need to do to make my specification use that, I wonder? Guess it was with an include, right? So this would be, let's just add some entities. Public class, author, public int ID, name, public list of book, okay, so there's my model, there's my list. The specification can now be a specification of, let's say, author, and we'll say this is author by ID with books. And so take that and that, and we'll take in an int author ID, and then this becomes query dot where x dot id equals author ID, query dot include books. Alright, now that should require all the stuff, and it works. So I think we're okay. It'd be great to know if it worked at runtime, but that would require me to create a database and wire it up and everything, which I'm not inclined to do in this console app. So I think this works okay. Even at net standard 2, I think this still works. Alright, so at that point, let's go back to specification and look at some of these issues and pull requests. So Ficeni, you're saying this isn't done yet? In this PR, there's some discussion, right? Number 60. Okay. Yeah, I think we need to still talk about what we want to do with this one. Like, in-memory might be confused with like the EF-core in-memory provider, which this does not depend on. This is really just like the list that you get back, right? Like this can be any list, any IEnumerable we can mess with, or iQueryable. So yeah, I want to think about this one some more. We can talk about it next time we have a call together. It'll probably be easier than streaming and chatting. This one was one we were just talking about. So he wants to add a new project to support EF6, and we looked at all this. It has files. I can resolve that pretty easily, I suspect. I think if I keep both of these, it should be happy. Not sure why there's a conflict here. I probably need an extra end project though, right? I think that looks fine. Oh, that's not good. What is this? I would say I want to keep all these, but... Alright, so on master I had this one, and this other master, he has 1, 2, 3 of them, none of which match that one. That's annoying. I'm not going to merge this here. Let's not do that. Leave. I'm going to let ngrusun fix that. Alright, he's not here, is he? No. What would be the odds of that? Yeah, those are the sample projects, but how many sample projects do we need? Did he add like a bunch of them? Let's go look at these files. So, this is that, that's fine. This is in there. That looks okay. New framework. Not sure if, I hope this is going to work on whoever's computer. Okay, it should be standard. Repository base is pretty optional to use anyway. That looks good. Yeah, I think this is good. So let's look at the issues. Some of these are pretty old. So Dapper compatibility, I'm not going to touch that. Missing XML comments. That was Ficeni. So mentioned this there. Alright, I think this is still outstanding. I have specification is right here. If we look at like I specification, yeah, we don't have any of those. So yeah, this is still out there. I think I thumbs it up, so someone can do this at some point. I'm not going to make people watch me type / comments on everything on the stream though, so I'm going to leave that out there. Utilizing DB functions. Alright. So this is implemented. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Where do we stand on this, Ficeni? It's done. So I can close this issue? It's just built in now, right? We don't need a PR or anything, it's just done. Yeah? Boom. Thank you. Alright. Create a common project for tests. That would be handy. Clean up and refact. Yeah, I agree with that. Also, when I looked at this, it was bugging me that these things are in the same sections here, but I guess that's okay. But I would still put them in like a test solution folder, perhaps. And maybe have some common test related stuff. So, yes, I agree with that. I don't need a mouse milestone. Labels. Sure. Someone can do this. That'll be helpful. Alright. It was 40. Is there any way I can order by a smart enum name? Alright, so now we've got things crossing the streams between my smart enums and my specifications. And here, we went through this, and we said, for in-memory, we could have a predicate. And this is part of the in-memory work that you're already doing, isn't it? We just had to come up with a name. Just query to in-memory. I said, sure, let's include it, and we did the thing, and then it's right there, but we're still discussing how to name it. So, alright, so we just need to, this is depending on number 56. Okay. And these are all fairly recent. Feature request to chain and an or and a where clause. I don't think I really want this. Put that logic in a new specification. Closing as I think this should be done in individual specifications to keep logic from leaking throughout the app. Are you playing background music on purpose? Yeah, I've got music to code by from Carl Franklin going. I think I have the volume turned down, so it should be not super loud for you, right? So you're hearing my 50% audio, desktop audio coming through. The soothing sounds of music to code by, which I think is right there. Carl Franklin. 20 tracks for the low price of $39. These tracks are like 25 minutes each, so they're a long time. Basically like a Pomodoro worth. Of course, when you just shuffle them on Winamp, you don't really notice necessarily when one starts and the next one ends. So this is Judson. But yeah, it's good to have some music, I think. At least for me it helps. Okay, so we're good with this one. I really thought there'd be a lot more coding involved today and making things change. What are you doing, mouse? There we go. Specification for preloaded data. Alright, so Faseni's obviously been a huge contributor to this. So here's another one from him. Base package could have its own evaluator. Alright. Well, I see your comment, Faseni. Let's just leave that one out there to discuss next time we're talking. Answers to common questions. This I was going to make into a blog post or add to the docs, I think. I might just do that real quick. Let's go, let me see here. Yeah, this is already pretty light. Let's add a frequently asked questions section here, which I can do right now. So come in here, sample usage, running the test, the reference, frequently asked questions, and we'll come up here and we'll go find this thing. We'll take this, we'll edit it, and we'll grab all of this. Let's try to customize the topics of the stream. Right, perfect. Boom. Grab that. Copy it. Get back over here. Paste it. The above explanation is completely wrong. I should probably read this then. Alright, so frequently asked questions. There. Does the use of filters break the open-closed principle? We don't know what filters are, though. We should probably mention somewhere what filters are. Yeah, no, I know. I'll get to the edit in a second. Where do we talk about filters? Because they're not in the README anywhere currently. So if I just mention them in this FAQ, it's going to be weird. You open up another tab and look at. It's in the sample, right? Don't we have a filters sample or something? Filters. Here we go. So if we just link to here, then I can come back in here and I can say filters are an optional approach to use with specifications. You'll find samples of them here. Aren't we? Obviously, we go back up to specifying conditions. As a brief recap, on close principal predicates, we should have constructs that are open to extension and closed to changes. This means we need to add a behavior to a class. We should be able to do that without changing the class itself. If you have a switch statements and too many conditional, it might be a sign that the behavior is much too hard-coded and might be refactored in a better way. In our case, indeed, we have too many conditions in the specification, so this concern is partially true. The catch here is that we have to do with single business requirement. The users demanded from us that we change behavior and add an additional condition by which customers can be queried. The requirement is that the filters on the customer's UI page be extended, and we want to be able to do that in a way that doesn't require us to keep modifying specifications. Okay. Why is using then include in one instance broke the application? Why? Okay. What is the proper usage? In one instance, while describing different uses, we updated the specification by adding then include, which in turn resulted in a runtime error. The error has to do with the fact that the address property is not a navigation property. That the address property is not a navigation property, but a string property. It should not include simple properties. You'll have a def directly, including some won't result in a compile time error, but a runtime error. It's up to you to be careful, make proper usage of it, thoroughly test your queries. We can constrain its usage and throw an exception, but we don't want to alter the behavior that much. What if EF at some future version makes use of this? Okay. How many includes are okay to have? Yeah, no, you're good for sending. This is all helpful stuff. That's why I want to include it. We'll pull this out. Creating join SQL, the real issue is not about how many tables, but the cardinality. If dependent tables are configured as one-to-one, that's quite okay, but if you're including dependent tables where there are many rows for each principal row, then it can have quite an impact on performance. You should be careful what SQL queries are being produced. EF Core 1 and 2 use split queries, EF 3 uses a single query. If you have a lot of one-to-n relationships and use a single query, you might end up with a Cartesian explosion. During the stream, what stream? Do we have a link? I showcase the following specification. Alright, so let's go find that YouTube link. Which I might have already added to here. Let's see. I thought I added it to this. No, not since January. Alright, so I need to add it here also. So while we've got this open, we'll add it. YouTube.com, like Ardalis. Should have it here. This was our stream, wasn't it?
The essential.
And copy that. And then we come back to this one during the stream. The question was if this is okay. Include. This one might be more complicated than it should be. First of all, these represent one-to-one, so we end up with two one-to-end navigations. This is relatively okay if you're retrieving one AWB record. On the other hand, if you're trying to get a list of records, you should reconsider if you need the child collections or not. Try to measure the performance, consider the usage, etc., etc. One key benefit of using the specification pattern is that you can easily have different specifications that load that include just the related data necessary for a given operation or context. In the above example, the actual interpreter is not the usage of several includes, but including the customer. That implies that AWB aggregate has direct navigation to the customer aggregate. If you follow DDD, you should strive to have as independent of aggregates as possible. If required, one particular aggregate should only hold the ID of some other aggregate root, not have a direct reference. The app can then load the other aggregate from its ID as necessary. In our case, it was a deliberate design decision to break this rule in order to improve the performance in particular cases and reduce round trips to the database, but it's not something I advise you to do. It's up to you to weigh the pros and cons. Alright. Do I need private constructors for entities for EF code first? Right. So once we added a non-default constructor, it broke things because we didn't have a parameterless constructor. EF requires one. Always add a private parameterless constructor. Once the is true. So, yes. Turns out EF is smart enough to utilize a constructor will pass the values as constructor arguments. That's how EF handles the immutability. But the constructor arguments should be named the same as the properties. First character can be lowercase. Ah, okay. That's good. Let's just say this part. EF is smart enough to utilize the constructor. Okay, that seems fine. In our case, during the stream, it was working totally fine without it. Then if you could just pass null while creating the instance. Once daytime was added, it's no longer true. You have no longer create the instance. Okay, that all looks awesome. Let's add one more link here to the YouTube. And let's see, what date was that? I don't remember. November 6th is when I added it, but that's not when we actually did it. Let's see, calendar. Would have been probably the week before that. No, maybe it was November 6th. Okay, fine. November 6th, we'll say it was. So, 6 November 2020, we did reviewing specification pattern in Nuget package. Passing null sentence is wrong. It doesn't work that way. 12:58. A minute ago you said that. Alright, let's see. This one is the one that's wrong, right? Because EF won't just do that? Is that what you're saying, Sunny? Because that seemed odd to me, but then it was news to me that EF would do this. I didn't know EF was smart enough to do the constructor thing. So I'm taking your word for that. I'd be curious to see that in action, honestly, because I have always done this approach and just always added a constructor. Initial assumption was wrong. Okay, so I can get rid of this whole sentence. Alright, what about this one? Does this actually work? Do we know? I haven't tested it. Anybody know? So I don't think if your props only have getters that this works. In my experience, when you have props with only getters, they have to have private setters. If they don't, then EF blows up. Let's just do a quick Google for this. EF core passing values into constructor. Is that something that they've added? Supports constructors. So constructors with arguments here. Okay, so it looks like EF core does support that. So the question I would have is if these were not there at all, would this still work? Because in the past, what I've found out is that if I delete my sets, then EF core blows up. And you get this error that he's showing right here. Or worse, you just get nulls for your types. Alright, let's say that works. We'll keep that there. You don't need setters at all, not even private setters. Okay, that's awesome if they've got that now. I think we're good then. So we're gonna push this change. Alright. So I can close some tabs here. Tabby, close, 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 close. Alright. Answers the counter question. That's done. I can close this out. Included in README. Right, so yeah, it only works under certain scenarios. Alright. Down to 9. Cast specification. Yeah, I don't think we can do this. And he didn't ever answer your question, so I'm going to just close this. Closing this, feel free to reopen if you want to keep discussing. Alright. How can we use caching? So I think we should have a demo for caching on here. So there's kind of an example on eShop on Web which I could reference, but it would be nice if our sample in here had it. So let me switch over here to our sample and make sure I've got latest. Get Carl out of my way. Pull everything. Let's look at the caching bit. Sample. Sample web. Okay, so let's say that we had some thing here. Let's make this our startup app. And I haven't looked at this in a while. What does this thing have? It's got a customers controller. And customers controller looks like an API controller. And its model includes a customer DTO, which is going to use this customer service. And we'll map the thing. Alright, and somewhere around here we're going to want to have caching, which I'm guessing we don't currently use. So we can say customers by name specification, that's fine. So if I wanted to cache getting customers by name and then display that somehow, we could do that. So let's run this and see what the UI looks like so I can figure out what the easiest way is to show that it's being cached. And maybe I need a database. Probably need to run migrations or something. Nothing there. Is it just doing Swagger or what is it doing? Doesn't look like it has Swagger configured. Okay, it's got endpoints mapped. How are you supposed to see this thing, Viceni? Are we just supposed to look at the code and not actually run it? Because I feel like we should have some way to see these APIs. These are all... Method does not need async await. Alright, why not? Okay. What if we add Swagger to this thing so we can actually hit it? Or what if we add a regular old page controller? Do we wire up regular controllers? We do. So if I add a page-based controller, we'll add a home controller. Add controller, MVC controller. I don't want to use EF. I'll just add this empty controller, home controller. It's fine. Index view. Is there a way to add a view here? Can I scaffold a view? Add scaffolded item, MVC, razor view, empty, add. You're not just going to add it there, are you? Yes, you are. Stupid thing. Under property, you can tweak launch settings so I can add the customer's URL. I'm just going to give it a home page. You know what? I should actually forget this. I like razor pages anyway. I don't know what I'm thinking. We're going to add razor pages. So we'll just add a razor page for the root. So we'll add a new folder called pages. And we'll add a new home page for a razor page. Add new razor page. Empty. Add. Okay, and then customer's controller is basically an API controller. I could fetch it with an HTTP client from the razor page, but that doesn't seem like a good idea. It's going to be the easiest way for me to get the data from here. Well, I don't need to get the data from here. I'm being stupid. I need to get the data here, and from here I just need to use the specification and the repository. So what repository are you using? You're using customer service, and customer service is using a repository. So I just want that. I want iRepository of that. Okay, so we're going to come over here, we're going to implement a cached repository pattern. So pull in that, we'll pull in that, we'll assign it to that. No? Really? What are you doing? Gonna make me type it out? Still not gonna let me do it. Fine, I'll do it that way. Read-only field cannot be assigned. Oh, that's because you're not a constructor. That's why nothing was working. Okay. Get this out of there. It was a hint to me that it wasn't working. It was telling me I was doing it in the wrong place. Alright, so now here, let's just give this thing a property. And then we'll say customer repository.list. Alright, so now we've got customers. And we can build this thing. And we just want to display them. So we can go to our page here, and we can say customer list. And I'm going to want a way to say whether it was cached or not, but we'll get to that in a minute. So we'll say at, what do we want to do? What do you have on a customer? Where's your model? Entity, customer aggregate, customer, customers have stores, customers have names and addresses and stores. So let's just do ID and name for now. So we're going to need a table, probably make it bootstrap. We're going to need a table head with a TH that has ID and a TH that has name. We'll start with that. We'll have a T-body, and we'll say for each var customer in model.customers. And then we'll do a TR, and a TD, customer.id, customer.name. Alright, now, where do I get this data from? You get some kind of seed data or anything for this sample? I don't see, maybe under infrastructure, data, configurations, customer. There's no data there. Do we seed this at all, Fisani? Because I feel like I'm going to want to do that. Sample db context seed.seed async. Alright, where are you at? Go to... We add customers. Yay, good job. It's in the core project under domains. Oh, okay. Gotcha. That's not where I usually would find it, but alright. Yeah, why are we still 404ing? That's weird. Let's come back here. This is my startup project. This is my page. This is my home page. Oh, I know why. Because in startup, we said add controllers. We didn't say add MVC, which includes all the things. And when we added endpoints, we said map controllers, but we didn't say endpoints.map pages, razor pages. There we go. Now, bam, look at that, we've got data. Okay, so how do we know if that was cached? Is the question. So right now, of course, we know it's not cached because we haven't done anything with caching. So we want to do two things. We want to implement caching, and we want to be able to tell if it was cached. So I think I'm going to want a cached repository for that. And I could probably go in infrastructure. Let me pull up my article on that. So Ardalis cached repository, that one. So here's the thing that I'm trying to do here. We'll see how quick I can do it, because we're going to try and knock it out before I finish streaming here in half an hour, 45 minutes. So here's my repository, and we could just do a timer on how long it takes to list them. That would probably be sufficient. So let's do that. Let's steal this code here. So we'll take the timer code. We'll come over here to my index page. We'll make another property with that. And then we'll time how long it takes to get the data. We'll steal this code. We'll put it on our onGet. And I don't want that there. I want this there. It's kind of the same demo. And then elapsed time milliseconds. We just want to display that on the page somewhere, which I don't seem to show, but that's pretty easy to do. So we'll come back to here, and we'll say loading customers took at model.elapsed milliseconds. 62 milliseconds. Refresh, refresh. that's fast. I don't know how we're going to get it faster than that with caching. Is it already cached? That's crazy how fast that is. Is it in memory? What are we doing here for our database? App settings is saying we're hitting spec sample app, and startup says to go use SQL Server and hit that. I'm impressed with how fast that is. I mean, it is on my own machine, and SQL Server is probably caching somewhat, but it's going to be hard for me to demonstrate that the cache is doing anything if it's that fast. Maybe if we had more data. Customer seed. I think we need more customers. Alright, so when does customer seed run? Program checks get required service, await. Let's see async. You add these every time? You must have a way to check to see. Well, it should take a lot longer to start up now, because I added a lot of customers. Okay, it still has just 100. I think I need to nuke the database and restart. So spec demo is the one to get rid of. Alright. Don't have an app anymore. Of course I don't. I must have set this up in some previous work I did. So let's get the app.developer exception page, app.use database exception page. That one's deprecated, but I'm still on that version. Yeah, so I should be able to get to that. And this should let me run migrations if I want to. Do you have migrations here? You do. There's migrations. This thing needs something. Where's the using statement for that thing? Yeah, we're using local DB and that gets cached. So do I need to use a real instance of SQL Server? Because I have one, but I don't want everybody to have to install that. Maybe timing is just not the right way to do it. Let's go open this in terminal and we'll just update the database the old-fashioned way. So .NET-EF database update. That should create my database for me. It should seed it with a whole bunch of people. But as we already saw, I think it's already being cached because it's the developer database. We'll run it now. And it is taking longer. It's thinking about it. I only added 2 zeros, so it's only 10,000 customers. Shouldn't be that bad. There it goes. It only took 636 milliseconds. It's still going. Okay, here we go. And then if we... My machine is struggling. Alright, if we refresh this... 600 milliseconds. Okay. Where's my other browser window I was using? Here. Let's start this one more time. 514 milliseconds. And of course it takes a while to actually display all these things. I don't really need to display them all either. So let's fix that. In our page, the list will already have fetched everything, but we'll just say .take 100. Hey Flem, how's it going? Alright. My computer's getting really slow for some reason. Is the stream getting choppy at all, or is it still good? Yeah, something's chewing up processor beyond just OBS, I think. Either that or I'm just low on memory. So I need more RAM. I've only got 32 gig, which at the time, 2 years ago when I made this thing, seemed like a lot, but I would definitely get 64 today. But this doesn't look bad, right? But it's just being real slow. Anyway, alright, run this one more time. It should just display 100 rows. Does. It's in my other screen, but trust me, it worked. Okay, so now we're going to implement the output caching here. Or actually, data caching. So, we have this interface. It has this list method. It gets the stuff. We're going to add caching. So to add caching, we're going to do a decorator around this, around the repository. Inside of it, we're going to have this code right here. And we're going to use the iMemory cache. We're going to wire that up with a memory cache somewhere. So I'll put the cached repository in infrastructure, I think. So here's our customer repository. Implements iCustomer repository. So let's do the same thing here. We'll say public class cached customer repository implements iCustomer repository. Okay, and we'll move this to its own type. And then we'll implement the interface. And in this case, it only has one method because this is just a demo. But we want to do basically this. Cache dot whatever, get my cache key, which we'll figure out in a minute. And get the cache, which is going to be an iMemory cache. So have a constructor with iMemory, memory, cache. Assign that to there. And then we want to have an instance of the same repository. Source repository, where we actually get the data. Callaway, and you're back. Flem says close the 70 tabs. I don't have 70 tabs. I have 70 tabs on multiple different instances of Chrome. Alright, this is one instance of Chrome. And then I have this, here's another instance of Chrome with more tabs. And I have several others. So yeah, there might be a few. But Chrome never chews up resources. That shouldn't be the problem. Okay, so let's go back to my other browser tab here. And look, I'm closing tabs. Alright, close the tab. Close another tab. Alright, so in here we have some cache options and other things. I'm pretty sure I've got a repo that I put together for this thing. So where's the repo? So I can see the actual source code to steal. GitHub is right there. Okay, so let's go look at the actual source code that I need. So cached repo sample. Startup is going to have some pieces I need. Specifically this one. I didn't have to wear a memory cache anywhere. That's interesting. You used to have to do that. Alright, let's find my cache repo. So I need that. So service. No. Data, repositories, cache. There we go. So what I want to know is, what is my key? Because that's going to have to come from the specification. And this repo is not even using the specification. That's going to throw this off. I need to make sure that's working. And in my cache options. So this part I can just steal. And stick that in here. Cache options is this. Put that right here. And we'll keep the underscore convention. Seconds, and I'm just going to set this to 10 seconds. Alright, so key is going to come from the specification, and the cache options is underscore, and the repository is source repository. Dot whatever, dot get customers. Alright, now this is where it's going to be a problem because this thing doesn't take in a spec, it takes in a filter, looks like. But we'll get there. In fact, at this point, this should be customers by address. Address search term. If I just want to show how to do it without a spec. So we'll do that. Okay, so that'll cache it with a key that corresponds to each address search term. I'll need to figure out a way to do an address search term, perhaps with a query string on this guy, because you have just a straight up list. Where's that list at? That's this. Is this the one I'm calling? And these are all telling us we don't need async and await on them. Alright, well, let's see if this works. We needed to wire it up in startup and say for an iCustomer repository use a customer repository, but I actually want that to use a cached customer repository. And then I need to tell the cached customer repository how to use the other one. And I thought I had that in here, so let's see. Yeah, and then this cache decorator used an EF repository or an author. I must have hard-coded what it was. That's what I did. So here in the sample, in the data, repositories, in this, the type of thing I brought in was the actual author repository, not the interface. So I'll do the same thing. In this one, when I use the cached one, I will ask for the actual customer repository here, and not the interface. And all that means is that I just have to add that thing to startup as a class, not a mapping. Like that. Alright, so now it will use the cached one, by default, and we'll see what breaks. So it took a long time, and now it took less long. I don't think it's caching now. It's too long to be caching. So let's see what I screwed up. Let's debug it. So in here, we'll put a breakpoint right here. And on customer repository, we'll put a breakpoint right there. And we'll just F5 it. Yep, I hear you, Faseni. But this should still work. Interesting that I didn't hit my breakpoints at all. Why would I not hit my breakpoints at all? Because this is the generic one? Customer, repository of customer. Customer repository. I think I must be hitting my repository. I think that's what you're trying to tell me. So let's look at startup again. Maybe I'm not using customer repository at all. Type of iRepository, use that. Okay. If something asks for this, use this. I am not asking for that. I am asking for the generic one. So that's why I'm not seeing it. So my repository is what Faseni is telling me I should use. And that just uses repository base, which is good because that's what I really want to use, because that'll let me get to the specification one. So let's change our cached version a little bit to use my repository base. To use my repository of customer. Right, that works, doesn't it? Yes. I don't really need customer repository. I need this. My repository of customer. Okay, and your green Y. Oh, because I'm still debugging. Okay, so now at least it should hit the right thing. If we come into startup, we wired up this to that. We probably want to do this though. I think I need that. Alright, so then this doesn't have get customers by search term, but that's okay. That's not really what I wanted anyway. I really wanted the list method. So let's get this to be where I want it to be. So this is list, and I should be able to override. Well, shoot. This should inherit from the same thing this does, which is iRepository of T. There we go. Now we can implement that. Okay, and then all these ones, I'm going to leave them as not implemented for now, but they would just delegate to the one under it. And this whole cache thing could be totally generic. So let's just make that a cached repository of T. So it's generic, and this is a T, and this is a cached repository, and this is a T. Dun, 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 dun. That all looks good. Okay, so now we're generic all the way. Yeah, let's just go ahead and make it so it works, because this will be part of our sample. Source repository.add async entity. We're just going to do basically that for each thing. Return count async with specification. This one we actually want to add caching to. Probably. Delete. Let's see. Not everything returns a value. I guess just to wait on it. What are you returning? You actually return the thing, huh? Alright. There we go. Delete, we don't have to do that far. Alright, so this is delete async. And then this is delete range. And you are not all code paths. Alright, you just need to return each one of these. I don't need to await on them, but I do need to return the task. And this should be entities. Customer repository concrete for repo. Because you're using our repository of customer. I hope that's what I'm doing. Alright, this should just be return the thing. Source repository.get by ID async with the ID. This repository has too many methods. This is the same. Nullable must be into a value type. Alright. I guess I can get rid of that and it should still work. Not sure why that's there. These two are the same. Alright, this is the one that we care about. Get by spec, get by spec. So this list one doesn't actually exist, so we're getting rid of this. Actually, it does exist, it's right here. So we'll pull this out, and we'll throw it here. And we would want to create a key for this, right? So string key equals name of t. At double quote dash list async, like that, and then this becomes your key. But what we really want, and this becomes list async. Thanks for the follow, Imakit Ahmed. We really want to do the one with the specification. That's the whole point of this. I think I don't need that. Alright, and this is the same for here. Just say list. We have the list and list async? That's just weird. I think only one of these is actually on. Yeah, I don't think this is a thing. Okay. Oh, I don't have nullable enabled. Okay. That could be why it doesn't like it. Right, that takes a spec, that takes a spec. This one just refers to base. So this is source repository. Save changes. And we're finally getting to the point where I'm going to do the thing. There's that. Turn entity. Okay. So when we do a get by spec async, we want to do some caching. This is where the cache key on this thing will matter. So we can say if specification dot cache enabled, then we're going to do this stuff. If it's not enabled, we're just going to return the source. But if the cache is enabled, we need to create a key or use the key that's on it, which is probably what we'll do. And then do cache.get or create, blah blah blah, set the options, and then call source, get or set async, whatever, with that spec. Now we probably want this thing to still be based off of this method name. There's a way to get the method name, I think, but I'm just going to copy paste it for now. And this part becomes the specification dot Can I get IntelliSense there? Cache key. Okay. Now where are you red? Not all code paths return a value. So else, return this, return that, else return the actual source. My specification has a cache key. Yes, it does. Alright, so now this should build. We'll be pretty close to it. Cached customer repository is now just type of cached customer repository. We really want this to be here. We're going to add caching for everything. Cached repository. This goes away. Alright, so anything that's looking for a generic repository is going to use our generic cached repository. And then we're going to add my repository that actually uses EF. And Callaway is working with some stuff at the moment. Am I using the wrong string thing? You guys are right. I'm not using string interpolation. Thank you. So they should be dollar signs. I was just working with @ signs when I was working on some regexes the other day and got me in that wrong habit now. So those should all be dollar signs for string interpolation. I think those are the only two I had. Okay. Now the other thing that you can do in here is add some logging, which is definitely useful. So let's do that. Let's add an iLogger. Do I have a logger? I do. Logger here. And once we have a logger, we can log whether or not we use the cache. So if cache is enabled and if all these things, we could say return. The trick is here we're going to get it from the source, but when we go to return here, there's no easy way to get that. So we'll just do logger.loginfo. Actually, let's do we'll do loginfo. That's what we want. Trying. Let's see. Checking cache for key. And then down here, we know we're actually getting the source thing, which we can just put in my repository. No, we can't. We'll do it here then. So we'll say logger fetching source data for key. And this will be a log warning, so it stands out a little bit more. Alright, now that's just a get, which we're not actually even using anywhere. Ed Charbonneau has joined and raided with 11 raiders. Welcome. Thanks for joining. We're just playing around with doing some caching in .NET Core. How's your stream, Ed? Woo. Hello, everybody. Alright, so I need to figure out which of these methods is actually getting called. So when we come in here and we call customer repository list async, we go to its implementation. It's this one, isn't it? No. What is it even calling? iRepository, that's going to be, okay, that'll be our cached one. So this will all work. Alright, good. I'm going to switch this from IIS Express to running with Kestrel. Hey Augusto, how's it going? And what that should let me do is when I run this, I should be able to see the logging output pretty easily. And figure out why it's blowing up. So here's this, and it says some services not able to be constructed, iCustomer UI service, unable to resolve type, logging logger. So that's why. So I need to add logging support. So where do I do that these days? Shouldn't my default web host builder give me a logger? I thought. Right? Why would iLogger not work? Logging should just be built in. Thank you for the follow, Augusto. Alright. I know I've done this a million times. Let's look at this a little more closely. Invalid operation exception. iLogger, ultimately activate infrastructure, customer. Alright. It can't find Microsoft extensions logger iLogger. That should just work. I know that I've done that a million times before. Let's Google this error message and see what we get. And the answer is, iLogger is no longer registered by default, but iLogger of T is. I forget the T. That's the problem. Okay, that makes sense. So that was my fault, obviously. But this iLogger needs to be an iLogger of cached repository of T, like that. And that also needs to be true of this. So you can't just have an iLogger. Or at least you can't, you know, by default. We could add support for it, but okay, so look at that. We got logging, and did not see it log anything though. Let me go back to app settings and make sure default is information. Yeah, that should all work. Let's go here. Let's go here. So here's our app, right? And there it printed everything out, which means it hit our data source. And I can tell caching is working, because look how fast it is now. And then it's, you know, about every 10 seconds. So our demo works, right? The cache is working. But I'd like to see that logging. Let's see if we got it. Now I can't even see the output window. Where'd it go? There it is. Yeah, so we're not logging anything. That is weird. Let's check launch settings for Kestrel. Are they different? Launch browser, it's still development, so should still be doing all the things. I just have to add the console logger, but I thought that was default too. Maybe it's not. Web builder dot configure logging config dot add console. I think that's what I need. Let's try it again. So that doesn't look any different. Doesn't seem to have done the trick. I think that was already there. Viceni says add services.add logging. Of course, you were saying that a while ago for some other problem, but let's try it. What the heck? Okay, so let's go to startup. And what level are you logging? I have info and I have warning. I can start doing error if it takes it, but my default should be info, and so it should work. Let's go hit the page itself. We'll add a logger here too, just to see. So we have an iLogger of index model. And we'll use that, and we'll use that, and we'll say logger dot log warning loading home page. So it's a very important warning. Run that. Am I forgetting anything? No. Hey, look at that. Loading home page worked. Okay. So I think the problem is that we're not hitting the code we think we are, which is probably the case. So I'll bet the problem is that. That's what it is right there. The problem is that Steve's an idiot, and Steve wired everything up for the specification, because that's what we're trying to demonstrate, but we aren't actually using a specification on this page, because I set that aside for later. Spec, new, customer. So now's the time to make that happen. So in the sample, in core, in specifications, we have a specification for customer by name with stores spec, that one. So I want one of those, I think. So we come back to this code behind file and we paste this in. And this thing takes in a parameter of a name. We'll say name, colon, we'll just put in a hard-coded 66. That should get us some names. Alright, and then when we do this, list async, the one we are actually trying to test that we've done all this caching work on is get by spec. But we're going to want list. We're going to want list with spec. Get by spec only gets one thing. So we're going to take all this code here. I'm going to say list async. What's the difference between these two? A list of t result or a list of t? I think I want the list of t, right? List async. Return list async. Get or create list async. List async. Alright. The t result is required if you're using a select. That's right. Not required in this scenario. Thank you. Okay. So that looks right. And that has my logging in it here, checking this cache, fetching the source. Okay, so now we're finally executing the code we think we're executing. Maybe the logging will work. Let's find out. No, still no. Right. Let's do a breakpoint. We know we're hitting the page, and the page is right here, and we're going to hit a breakpoint right there. Oh look, there's a spec that I created and didn't pass, because I'm still trying to go too fast. Pass the spec into there. Alright. We'll try it one more time before we debug it. Well, that seems to have broken everything, so that means it's working. Nope. Okay. List async. List async that takes in a spec if cache is enabled, otherwise just return the list with the spec. So if caching is not enabled, which it's not, but 66 is not finding anything, yeah, that's what I'm figuring too. So let's go here and let's turn on cache enabled and then give it a cache key, which it doesn't have currently. So cache enabled equals true, cache key equals the name of this thing, name of customer, yada yada with store spec, string interpolation, like that, and then this, and then dash, and then this, and then name, and then that. That looks good. So you should be name of, and there. So context accessor is inaccessible. I'm not trying to set it, I'm in the constructor. That's interesting, if we can't actually use this thing. Is it because I'm inheriting from this one? Do I have to use query for that too? I thought query was for other stuff. cache. Fine. You and your fluent interface. How do I set the cache key? Does this thing take a cache key? Specification name must be called after. I forget how we said to do that, which is why we're doing this demo. So, for those of you just tuning in, we're trying to write a demo that shows how to use caching in the specification, which I probably should have mentioned a few minutes ago when new people showed up. But in here, we have sample usage and a bunch of other stuff, and nothing about that. So hopefully we have, if I do a search, somewhere we're going to have enable cache here. Come on, right? Blog post with spec. There's a sample. And it says enable the cache on that. Is that what we want? It's been fun trying to figure this out. Yeah, sorry. That was the scavenger hunt was to try and figure out what the heck we were trying to do here. So we're going to see if we can do that on this spec. Okay, so we're going to do enable cache, but instead of on name of this, so that's what I'm trying to do here. Name of this. I guess I didn't have to do all this work by hand. It does it for me. So name. And it is query dot, right? Query dot. Okay. Okay, so these all go away. And we end up with just query dot enable cache. Here's the name, here's the name. I can do a semicolon here. This can also be chained together. Dot where this, dot include that, dot enable cache. So we'll take this and just chain it off of here so you only have the one builder, essentially. There we go. Is specification EF thing or what? Where does it come from? It's a design pattern. It's used in domain-driven design primarily is where it comes from. But it's a way to separate out your query logic from your repository or your UI. And so what it lets you do is have a list of specifications as part of your domain model that you can test and organize and deal with and name. And it keeps your repository, if you use a repository, it keeps your repository from getting bigger and bigger and bigger with all these other query methods on it. You know, get customers by name and address, get customers by this, that, and the other. So if you've ever run into repositories that have a whole bunch of different like query methods that keep getting added to them, this fixes that. And if you ever have something where you just pass a DB set around everywhere and you're constantly just doing where statements off of it, or you return back an iQueryable from your repository and you're constantly doing where statements all through your code, you basically have data access code spread throughout your whole app. Specification gets rid of that too. If you look at the eShop on Web sample app, it uses this too. So here's the sample I'm working on. It's part of the specification project, which is at nuget.org, ardalis.specification there. But you can also go check out eShop on Web, which is Microsoft's reference application that I help maintain. And if you look at the source code here and you look in source, core, specifications, you'll see examples of specifications that are used to drive that app. And I don't know what the Oh God reference is. I hope it's good. Okay, so I think we're really close on this now, which is good because I'm about out of time. So we've got this customer by name thing. We've enabled caching, given it a cache key, which means now when we actually hit the cached repository, it will enter into this if statement, and it should log this thing. And we should see if it actually does the caching. And look at that. Okay, so checking the cache for this, fetching the data for that. Cool. Okay, so let's do a couple things. Let's make it so we actually get back some results, because I broke that. So I think customer names, if we go look at the seed data, it'll tell me entities, customer seed, customer I. I thought there would be an I with a 66. That's why I tried that. There had to be some customers with that substring, right? Or is it looking for an exact match? Customers by name with store spec wants name to be equal to name. Oh, that's the problem. Okay, so it's not like. Fine. We can do that. We can do customer 66 or whatever number. And wait for it. Look at that, it brought up a customer. Okay, yeah, requires exact match. I saw that. Okay, so what should happen is if I bring this thing over to the side and do this, then as I hit refresh, it should say, it shouldn't always be checking. And it'll be easier to do if I get rid of that other log statement. So we don't need this log warning on the home page anymore. Okay, so now refresh, refresh, refresh. So green info just means it's checking the cache and it's getting the data from the cache. And yellow, which is every 10 seconds, it's going to fetch it from the source. So it works. So yay, that was so easy. And yeah, we could use contains, but I don't want to change your demo any more than I already am. So over here in, let's make this bigger. Where's our, I guess I clicked off of it. Let's go back to our issue. And I will make a pull request with this. So let's make a pull request. Let's make a branch, new branch, Ardalis, whack, caching, create. Do I have anything that needs cleaned up? I think I left everything in a not too terrible state. So let's look at our changes. We messed around with customer, seed we made bigger, specs we changed. That all looks okay. So added example of caching with specification, added a home page to the sample to show a customer, added logging to show if caching is working. Alright, commit all the things, push them up. Done. Come back here, go to pull request, create new pull request, do that, create that pull request, and then I can reference that pull request while it's doing its checks. Hey Viceni, if you're still there, do you want to approve this? Take a quick look at it, see if I did anything stupid. We can come over here and say, I updated the sample to show how to use caching with a cached repository. C number, and I already forgot the number, 65. So I should say 65 fixes 63, but we'll leave that there. And also, where's my article? I guess we'll point you here. See also this and how much did I click? Apparently a lot. And here. There we go. Comment. Close the issue. Alright. Viceni, how's it going? Big time investor. Got any investment tips? Is C# my favorite programming language? Yeah, I would say it is. I like C# and quite a bit. Let's see. Pull requests. Still yellow. Still building. Show me details. Oh, it's almost done. It's running its integration test. So this is kind of cool. This thing actually runs integration tests against a SQL Server hosted version of SQL Server. So all the tests that use EF only work if they talk to a real database. So this is showing an example of how to do a database in a Docker container and run all of our integration tests against it, which is what this is doing right now. So this will be done in a second, and then I'll finish merging it. So if you want to see how this works, you can look at the source for the repo. All the information for doing this is in there too. But this is running these integration tests. So if you ever need to do that, you can do it with Docker. Alright, I think I'm going to wrap this up. So this is going to be done in a second. I'll merge that pull request. It is just a little bit after 2 o'clock Eastern time, which means my time with you is done for this week. We didn't actually do a whole lot to update packages to .NET 5 because they all just worked. My clean architecture one, Shady Nagy helped me get that up and deployed, so that one's good to go. We cleaned up some issues and worked on specification and caching a bit, but other than that, I think we're in good shape. So if you're new here, feel free to follow me. I usually talk about open source .NET stuff mostly, design patterns, domain-driven design, things like that. You'll find me on Twitter and other places too as Ardalis as well. I'm also one of the live coders, so I can go open up this and go see who else is on, and this is going to make sound because it's a sound by default. We'll mute that. Let's go see what James is working on. He's usually working on .NET stuff. He says he's working on Python. So what about Clarkia? What are you doing? Community clips, text-to-speech. What about Honest Dan Games? What are you working on? Don't know. Can't tell. I develop things. I don't know who this is. Working through Vue.js Sentry bugs. How about Patchy codes? I don't know this one either. That's not English. Bald bearded builder. Blazor. Oh, we can do some Blazor. So let's do that one. So I'm gonna copy. You gonna let me do it? No. I just want to copy that. There it goes. Copy that. I'm gonna go to my stream manager. Thanks for the follow, ChrisC119. And we're gonna say raid channel, and we're gonna put in a new channel. We have 0 followers apparently. Is he even starting? I don't know if there's anyone there. Starting soon. I don't want you to go and raid somebody who's not even there. It said he had 20 people with him. What about this person? Nope, that's still not English. Is he going to be there? Let's go see if my pull request is ready while we think about it. It's all good. Alright. Deploy, deploy, deploy. All set. Alright, so we updated that sample. We did something. We made progress in the world. Let's get rid of all this. Let's get rid of that. Okay, fine. We're going to James Montemagno. James, we will be joining you. Let's go back to my Twitch stream. And back and James. Boom. Alright, thanks everybody for hanging out with me this afternoon. You think he's starting, Callaway? You think he's starting? Of course, now he'd be starting.